Alex Mercer's fingers trembled as he unpacked the last of his belongings. A framed photo of himself, in better days, smiling beside his late wife Rachel. He placed it face down on the bedside table in the ranger cabin. The wood creaked beneath his weight as he sat on the edge of the bed, the smell of pine disinfectant failing to mask the underlying mustiness of a space too long unoccupied. "Fresh start," he muttered to the empty room. Again. Outside, ancient redwoods loomed over the cabin. From his window, Alex could only see their massive trunks disappearing upward, their crowns hidden in fog. Even in daylight, they cast long shadows that seemed to reach for his new home like grasping fingers. Sleep didn't come easily that first night. When it did, his dreams were filled with flames and a small hand slipping from his grasp. Reaching, stretching, fingertips almost touching. "I've got you," he had promised the little girl, as the cabin roof groaned above them. He could still smell the acrid burn of treated wood, still feel the scorching heat on his face. Then the crack, the roof collapsing, her hand gone. Her scream silenced. Alex jolted awake, sweat-soaked and gasping. 3:17 a.m. The same time he woke every night. Morning patrol was supposed to be routine, a chance to learn the trails, to breathe clean air that didn't taste of guilt. Alex hiked with practiced efficiency, his boots crunching over fallen needles and twigs. He paused, realizing what had been bothering him since sunrise. Silence. No birds called. No squirrels chattered. The forest held its breath. He pressed his palm against the rough bark of a redwood, feeling its cool solidity. "What's gotten into everyone today?" he asked aloud, his voice swallowed by the unnatural quiet. A rustling sound pulled his attention deeper into the woods. A deer burst from the underbrush, nearly colliding with him. Its eyes rolled white with terror as it bounded past. Alex spun, searching for a predator in pursuit, but saw nothing. 3 more deer followed, then a fox, then a family of raccoons, all fleeing from the same direction. No predator followed. "What the hell?" Alex muttered, making a note in his patrol log. By midday, he'd found fresh bear scat on the eastern trail, the bear moving fast, away from the ancient grove. Against protocol, Alex turned to follow the retreating wildlife, heading toward whatever they were fleeing. The temperature dropped as he approached the old growth section. These trees had stood since before Rome fell, their massive girths testament to millennia of survival. Alex couldn't shake the feeling they were watching him. "Ranger Mercer. Hello, can you hear us?" The voices startled him. A young couple stood on the main trail, looking disheveled and frightened. "We've been walking in circles for hours," the woman said, her blonde hair tangled with pine needles. "Brad swears we followed the markers, but we kept ending up back here." Brad held up their compass. "Something's wrong with this thing." The needle spun wildly, never settling on north. Alex frowned, taking the compass. It continued its frantic rotation in his palm. "That's unusual." He pulled out his own. "It worked perfectly. Let's get you back to the trailhead." As they walked, Alex couldn't shake the sensation of being observed. He glanced back repeatedly, seeing nothing but ancient trunks. Yet when he turned forward again, He could have sworn the path had subtly changed. Trees closer or further apart than he remembered from his morning patrol. "Did you hear that?" Brad asked, freezing mid-step. They all stood still. A soft sound reached them, like wood creaking, but rhythmic, almost like breathing. "Just the trees settling," Alex said with more confidence than he felt. "Wind in the canopy." There was no wind. When Alex finally returned to the station after escorting the hikers to safety, Ranger Dominic Whitaker was waiting, his broad frame blocking the doorway, arms crossed over his perfectly pressed uniform. "Mercer, let's talk." Whitaker's deep voice held no warmth. "I've been reviewing your file." Alex's stomach tightened. Of course he had. Inside the office, Whitaker gestured to a chair. "Your incident report from the Cascade Fire. 4 fatalities." "I know how many died," Alex said, his voice tight. The scar on his arm seemed to burn beneath his sleeve. "Psych evaluation suggests you experienced a significant trauma response. Recommended extended leave." Whitaker's dark eyes studied Alex carefully. "Yet here you are, 3 months later." "I passed the return to duty assessment." "Barely." Whitaker tapped the file. "I requested you because you have experience, not because I needed another problem. This is a quiet post. Keep it that way." Alex nodded stiffly, swallowing the defense that rose to his lips. As he turned to leave, Whitaker added, "The trails around here can play tricks on your mind when the fog rolls in. Don't let imagination get the better of you." That night, Alex dreamed of trees that walked, their roots pulling free from the earth with wet, sucking sounds. He woke again at exactly 3:17 a.m., this time to a distinct scratching at his cabin wall. Grabbing his flashlight, Alex moved cautiously to the window. Outside, shadows played across the moonlit clearing. Something moved along the cabin's exterior. Heart pounding, he opened the door, sweeping his light across the wooden siding. No animal, no person, but the beam illuminated something spreading across the planks. A growth, pale branching patterns, like frost, but organic. Fungus. It pulsed slightly as his light touched it. Alex reached out, then hesitated. The growth seemed to be spreading as he watched, tendrils extending millimeter by millimeter. When his fingers finally made contact, the texture was unexpectedly warm and yielded slightly, like touching raw dough. A faint, sweet rot smell rose from it. The entire patch quivered at his touch. Then, as if reacting, it began to spread more rapidly toward his fingertips. Alex jerked his hand back, heart hammering in his chest. The fungus continued its advance, forming intricate, almost neural patterns across his cabin wall. In the distance, from the direction of the ancient grove, came a sound too organized to be wind, too sustained to be an animal call. It might have been his imagination, but Alex could have sworn it sounded like his name, whispered by thousands of leaves at once. The woods were welcoming him home. Alex scraped another sample of the fungal growth into a specimen jar, carefully labeling it with the date and location. 3 weeks at his new post, and the anomalies were multiplying. The strange fungus now appeared on trees throughout his patrol zone, always oriented toward the ancient grove. His patrol log had become a catalog of abnormalities: deer carcasses unnaturally twisted, as if the animals had contorted themselves to death. Birds found with broken necks at the base of seemingly random trees. Hikers reporting watches that stopped for hours, then suddenly caught up to the correct time. The radio on his belt crackled. "Mercer, come in." Whitaker's voice, tense in a way Alex hadn't heard before. "Go ahead," he responded. "Report to base. We've got missing hikers. Young couple didn't check in last night." Alex's stomach tightened. Brad and Tanya, the disoriented couple from his first week, had returned despite his warnings. Their campsite permit placed them near the ancient grove. The search party assembled quickly. 4 rangers, including Whitaker and Alex, plus 2 local volunteers with tracking dogs. Whitaker laid out a standard grid search pattern, pointedly assigning Alex to the section furthest from the ancient grove. "Sir, with respect, I found them before when they were lost. I know where they were heading." Alex kept his voice steady, professional. Whitaker studied him for a moment. "Fine. You're with me." They moved in pairs through the forest, calling for the missing hikers. The dogs seemed unusually anxious, whining and pulling at their leashes, reluctant to move deeper into the woods. By mid-afternoon, they found the campsite. The tent stood intact, equipment neatly arranged. 2 sleeping bags lay inside, zipped together. No signs of animal intrusion, no struggle, but no hikers. They just walked away. One of the volunteers suggested. Alex circled the perimeter, eyes scanning the ground. He found it at the edge of their camp, the now familiar fungal growth spreading in a line that led toward the ancient grove. This patch glowed faintly, visible even in daylight. "Sir," Alex called, "you should see this." Whitaker crouched beside him, frowning at the luminescent fungus. Some kind of bioluminescent strain. Not unheard of. "It wasn't here yesterday. I patrolled this area." Alex reached toward it. "Don't touch it," Whitaker snapped. When Alex looked up in surprise, the older ranger added gruffly, "Standard protocol, with unknown organisms." But Alex had already noticed. Whitaker's hand was trembling slightly, and sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the cool air. He's seen it before, Alex realized. He's afraid of it. The search continued until dusk with no results. As they prepared to head back, Alex spotted a cabin through the trees, smoke curling from its chimney. It wasn't on any of his maps. "I'll check if they've seen anything," he told his search partner, veering toward the cabin. The small structure nestled against a massive fallen redwood, looking like it had grown organically from the forest floor. Wind chimes made of bones, and wood clinked softly from the porch rafters. The door opened before Alex could knock. A small woman with elaborate silver braids stood in the doorway, her piercing blue eyes assessing him coolly. Wooden beads clacked softly in her hair as she tilted her head. "Ranger," she said, not a question. "Come about the missing ones, I expect." "Yes, ma'am. I'm Alex Mercer. Have you—" "Meredith Carson. Everyone calls me Mary, though there's precious little Mary about me these days." She stepped back, gesturing him inside. Tea's already on. The cabin's interior was a botanist's dream and a fire marshal's nightmare. Dried plants hung from every beam. Shelves overflowed with jars of specimens. Handwritten labels yellowed with age. Books lay stacked in precarious towers, their spines cracked with use. "You won't find them," Mary said, pouring tea into a chipped mug. It smelled of earth and spice, not in any state you'd recognize. A chill ran down Alex's spine. "You've seen them." "Seen lots of things in these woods. Third generation here. My grandmother was midwife to the logging camps." Mary handed him the tea. "Drink. Helps with the spores." "Spores? They're waking up the old trees. Drought's gone on too long. Fire season's coming earlier every year." Mary moved to a trunk in the corner, rummaging inside. "They're changing their strategy." Alex sipped the bitter tea, unsure if the old woman was speaking metaphorically, or if she'd simply spent too many years alone in the woods. Strategy for what? Survival. She pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages warped with age. "My grandmother's. From 1887, during the Big Cut. Read it. Then you'll understand what's happening." Alex took the journal hesitantly. "Mrs. Carson, those fungal patterns you've been collecting, they're not separate organisms. They're extensions." She tapped her temple. "Like brain cells. The forest is thinking now, more than it ever has before. And it doesn't think much of us." That night, in his cabin, Alex read by lamplight. The journal chronicled the experiences of logging camps in the area. Ordinary entries about births and illnesses gave way to increasingly disturbed accounts. May 17th, 1887. 3 loggers came in with strange complaints today. Headaches, hearing voices from the trees, prescribed willow bark tea. But I worry it's the same madness that took the Nichols crew last month. June 2nd, 1887. Found Thomas wandering naked, covered in some kind of growth. Claims the trees told him to join with them. Had to restrain him when he tried to cut open his own chest to let them in. Asterisk, June 15th, 1887. Half the camp affected now. They speak in unison sometimes. When they sleep, I've seen something moving beneath their skin. The final entry chilled Alex's blood. June 23rd, 1887. The men cut down the great-grandfather tree today. The screaming wasn't from the tree. The men's mouths opened, but the voice came from the woods. "You take our oldest, we take your youngest. The children are missing now. I hear movement in the walls. The trees are speaking through us now." The journal ended there. Unable to sleep, Alex returned to the missing hikers' campsite shortly before dawn. The fungal trail had grown, now a pulsing path nearly 6 inches wide. Against every protocol and his better judgment, Alex followed it. The trail led deep into the ancient grove, to places not on any official map. Here, the redwoods grew so densely, their canopies completely blocked the sky. Perpetual twilight reigned beneath them, and the air hung thick with moisture and the smell of decay. The fungal path ended at a massive tree, easily 30 feet in diameter. Its bark was entirely covered in the luminescent growth, pulsing with slow, rhythmic patterns that reminded Alex disturbingly of a heartbeat. At the base of the tree, he found a hiking boot. Brad's, judging by the size and the distinctive red laces. Beside it lay a camera. Alex picked it up with shaking hands. The display still worked. He scrolled through the images. Brad and Tanya smiling at the trailhead, sunset over the forest, campfire scenes. The final image stopped his breath. Taken in night mode, it showed the fungal growth they must have discovered near their camp. But in the background, barely visible among the trees, stood a human-like silhouette composed entirely of what looked like thin branches or fungal tendrils. Its featureless head was tilted, observing the photographer. A sound behind him, wood creaking, but too deliberate, too rhythmic. Alex spun, heart hammering. Nothing visible moved, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The fungal patterns on the great tree pulsed faster, like an excited heartbeat. "Hello?" Alex called, immediately regretting breaking the silence. The forest seemed to inhale around him. The air pressure changed. The fungal glow brightened momentarily, illuminating the clearing. In that brief flash, Alex saw them. Dozens of human silhouettes standing motionless among the trees, composed of twisted bark and fungal growths. Too distant to make out details, but unmistakably watching him. When he blinked, they were gone. "You need sleep, Mercer." Whitaker didn't look up from his paperwork when Alex placed the camera on his desk. And possibly a psychiatric evaluation. "Just look at the last photo," Alex insisted. Whitaker sighed, but complied. His expression remained neutral as he studied the image, but Alex noticed his knuckles whitening as he gripped the camera tighter. "Lens flare," Whitaker said finally, placing the camera down. "Or moisture on the lens. These consumer cameras aren't designed for forest conditions." And the boot? The fungal trail? The journal accounts from 1887. Old legends. Every forest has them. Whitaker stood abruptly. "We'll resume the search tomorrow. Standard protocols. And Mercer?" His eyes locked with Alex's. "Stay on your assigned routes. That's an order." As Alex turned to leave, frustrated, Whitaker added quietly, "Some parts of this forest, they don't welcome visitors. Never have." It wasn't until Alex was back in his cabin that he realized Whitaker hadn't asked which parts of the forest he'd been exploring, as if he already knew exactly where the danger lay. The university research van kicked up dust as it pulled into the ranger station lot. Alex watched from the window, observing the dark-haired woman who emerged, stretching after the long drive. She moved with purpose, immediately unloading equipment rather than taking a moment to appreciate the towering redwoods surrounding the clearing. "Doctor." "Vasquez," Alex called, approaching with an outstretched hand. "Alex Mercer. I'm the ranger who will be assisting with your research access." Elena Vasquez's handshake was firm, businesslike. "Ranger Mercer, thanks for accommodating my last-minute request." Her intense dark eyes assessed him quickly before returning to her equipment. "I need to get these samples refrigerated immediately." Of course. Alex helped carry several coolers into the station's small lab space. "Your research proposal mentioned studying drought effects on mycorrhizal networks." Elena paused, giving him a second, more appraising look. "Most rangers just call it mushroom stuff." Alex shrugged. "Ecology degree before I joined the service." "Then you might actually understand what I'm looking for." She began unpacking sophisticated sampling equipment. This forest has one of the oldest continuous fungal networks on the continent. I'm tracking how climate stress affects their communication patterns. Alex's pulse quickened. Communication. Between the fungi. Between the trees, through the fungus. She connected a microscope to her laptop. Think of mycorrhizal networks as the forest's internet. Trees share resources, warn each other of threats, even support weaker members of their species through these networks. And you believe they're talking to each other? Elena's hand stilled. She looked up, wariness in her expression. Not in any human sense. They exchange chemical signals, information. She studied his face. Why do you ask? Alex hesitated, then made a decision. I have something to show you. Elena's scientific detachment cracked as she examined Alex's fungal samples under her microscope. This doesn't make sense, she muttered, adjusting the focus. The cellular structure. It's like nothing I've documented before. Is it dangerous? Alex asked, standing close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her body in the cool lab. It's revolutionary. She looked up, excitement replacing skepticism. These hyphae are forming structures similar to neural networks. And the growth rate you've documented. She flipped through his patrol logs. It's accelerated at least tenfold from normal mycorrhizal expansion. That's not all. Alex showed her the photos from the missing hiker's camera, then Mary's grandmother's journal. Elena absorbed it all with increasing fascination. We need to collect fresh samples from the source. Whitaker ordered me to stick to marked trails. A smile played at the corner of Elena's mouth. I didn't receive that order, and I need a ranger escort for my permitted research activities. They visited Mary Carson before heading into the forest. The old woman seemed unsurprised by their arrival. 3 mugs of tea already steaming on her cluttered table. The scientist, Mary, nodded at Elena. About time one of you started paying attention. Elena's skepticism melted as Mary showed them her meticulous records. 60 years of documented forest anomalies, recorded with scientific precision despite her eccentric presentation. These growth cycles, Elena murmured, tracing Mary's hand-drawn charts. They correlate perfectly with drought periods. Defense mechanism, Mary said simply. Trees can't run from threats. They adapt. But consuming hikers isn't adaptation, Alex argued. It's aggression. Mary's blue eyes fixed on him. Wouldn't you fight back if someone was burning your home, cutting off your water, killing your children? These are plants, not... They're older than your entire civilization, Mary cut in. They've watched species rise and fall. They're patient. But patience has limits. Elena interjected, if the network is truly evolving this rapidly, we need to document it properly. Scientific evidence. Mary laughed, a dry sound like leaves rustling. Go then. See your evidence. The thinking tree awaits. She pressed a small cloth bag into Alex's hand. Burn this if the whispers start in your head. Might buy you time to run. Back at the station, 3 more hikers were reported missing a father and 2 teenage sons who'd ventured off trail near the ancient grove. Whitaker organized another search party, his face grim as he assigned routes that deliberately avoided the oldest section of forest. Sir, Alex approached him privately. I really think we should check the restricted area. That's 3 more people missing in the same vicinity as... Stick to your assigned quadrant, Mercer. Whitaker's voice was low, but his eyes darted nervously toward the ancient grove visible through the window. That's an order. As the search parties dispersed, Alex noticed Whitaker popping pills from an unmarked bottle. Sleeping tablets, he guessed, noting the station chief's bloodshot eyes and trembling hands. He knows something. He's seen something. The search yielded nothing. No equipment, no footprints, not even a discarded water bottle. It was as if the earth had swallowed the hikers whole. That night, Elena knocked on Alex's cabin door. Her laptop clutched to her chest, eyes wide with discovery. "The samples," she said breathlessly as he let her in. "I've been analyzing them all day. The protein structures." She opened her laptop, displaying complex molecular models. "Alex, there are human neural proteins in the fungal cells." "What does that mean?" "It means this fungus isn't just communicating between trees. It's incorporating animal neural patterns, specifically human ones." Alex's blood ran cold. "The missing hikers." Elena nodded grimly. "I think the network is harvesting them somehow, learning from them." "That's impossible. Fungi can't digest human neural tissue and then..." "What? Use it to think?" "Not normally, no." Elena pulled up another image, an electron microscope view of cells dividing in unnatural patterns. "But these fungi are evolving rapidly, developing new structures. Almost as if they're..." She hesitated. "As if they're what?" "Adapting human neural architecture to enhance their own communication network." She met his eyes. "The forest isn't just defending itself, Alex. It's upgrading." A heavy knock on the door made them both jump. Whitaker stood outside, his uniform rumpled, eyes wild. "The tourists are leaving," he said without preamble, canceling reservations, claiming they hear voices from the trees. "That's what I've been trying to tell you," Alex began. "Shut up," Whitaker hissed, glancing over his shoulder at the dark forest. "You've been spreading panic, talking to everyone about fungi and missing hikers and sentient trees." He jabbed a finger into Alex's chest. "This forest was peaceful before you came. Whatever's happening, you brought it with you." Elena stepped forward. "Ranger Whitaker, I've confirmed anomalous biological activity in..." "You're both confined to the station." Whitaker cut her off. "No more field research. No more searches in unauthorized areas." His voice dropped to a whisper. "It's watching us now, because you woke it up." As Whitaker stalked away, Elena and Alex exchanged looks. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "we find the source, the thinking tree." Whitaker ordered us to stay here. "People are missing, Alex. Maybe dying." Her eyes flashed with determination. "And I'm not under his authority. My research permit comes from the Department of Interior." That night, Alex dreamed of roots wrapping around his limbs, pulling him into soft, dark earth. He didn't struggle. It felt like coming home. He woke to find tendrils of the luminescent fungus creeping under his door, reaching for his bed like questing fingers. The scent of sweet decay filled the room. Outside, the ancient forest pulsed with faint light, as if inviting him deeper into its embrace. Dawn filtered weakly through the canopy as Alex and Elena navigated the unmapped terrain beyond the designated trails. The forest grew denser with each step, redwoods crowding together so tightly that in places they had to turn sideways to squeeze between trunks. The air hung thick and still, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, a sweet, rotting odor that reminded Alex of overripe fruit. "We're getting close," Elena whispered, though there was no obvious reason to keep their voices down. Something about the forest demanded reverence or fear. The fungal network sprawled across the forest floor, no longer hiding in discrete patches, but forming an intricate, glowing web that pulsed with slow, rhythmic beats. Alex couldn't shake the sensation that it was tracking their movements, the luminescence brightening slightly wherever they stepped. "Like neurons firing," Elena murmured, crouching to photograph the phenomenon. "It's creating new pathways in response to our presence." Alex checked his compass again. The needle spun uselessly, as it had since they'd entered this section of forest. "We need to mark our trail. I'm losing all sense of direction." "Already on it." Elena pointed to the small scraps of colored tape she'd been attaching to trees. "Scientific method. Always maintain a way to replicate your path." The tape on the nearest tree was gone. Alex frowned, certain he'd watched her place it just minutes ago. He turned to examine the surrounding trunks. All the markers had vanished. "Elena." She followed his gaze, her scientific confidence faltering for the first time. "That's not possible." A soft sound reached them, wood creaking, but with a pattern too regular to be natural settling. It came from all directions at once, surrounding them. "We should go back," Alex said, fighting the tremor in his voice. Elena shook her head, determination hardening her features. "We're too close to the source. This is exactly what my research predicted. Stress-induced acceleration of forest communication networks." She stepped forward, following the brightest path of fungal growth. "Think of what we could learn about environmental adaptation." Alex grabbed her arm. "Those hikers didn't disappear because the trees wanted to teach us about adaptation. We don't know what happened to them," Elena countered, pulling free. "That's why we need evidence." The ground shook slightly beneath them. Not an earthquake, but a deliberate tremor, as if something massive was shifting its weight. The fungal glow intensified, illuminating their path forward, or drawing them deeper. "It wants us to follow," Alex realized aloud. "Anthropomorphizing natural phenomena doesn't help, Alex." But Elena's voice lacked conviction as she stared at the pulsing path that opened before them. "Though the bioluminescent response to our presence is unusually directed." They pressed on, deeper into the ancient heart of the forest. The clearing appeared suddenly, as if the forest had parted deliberately to reveal it. At its center stood the largest redwood Alex had ever seen, easily 30 feet in diameter, its bark entirely covered in the luminescent fungal growth. The patterns flowed across its surface like circuitry, pulsing with what now unmistakably resembled a heartbeat. The sweet rot smell was overwhelming here, mixing with a metallic tang that Alex recognized with horror, the scent of blood. "My God," Elena breathed, her scientific detachment crumbling as she took in the scene. The ground around the massive tree was littered with objects, backpacks, torn clothing, camping equipment, and bones, human bones, partially absorbed into the root system that emerged from the soil in thick, gnarled tentacles. Some still had flesh attached, blackened and interwoven with fungal growths. Alex fought the urge to vomit. We need to leave, now. But Elena was already approaching the tree, camera in hand, her initial shock giving way to fascination. Do you understand what we're seeing? It's impossible, but it's happening. She touched the trunk reverently. The network is using human remains as fertilizer, but look. She pointed to fungal structures that had formed around a partially visible skull. These aren't random growths. They're following the neural pathways of the human brain, replicating them. Elena, get away from it. Don't you see? It's learning from us. Her eyes gleamed with terrible wonder, using our neural architecture to enhance its own communication network, incorporating our patterns of thought into its own consciousness. The fungal patterns brightened beneath her touch, spiraling outward from her fingertips. A fine mist of spores released from the trunk, hanging in the air around her face. She inhaled sharply, then coughed. Elena! Alex rushed forward, but stopped as Elena turned to face him. Her eyes had clouded, pupils expanding until almost no iris remained. Spore-like particles floated across their surface. They've been waiting so long, she said, her voice unnaturally calm. Watching us destroy everything. Learning our weaknesses. Who's been waiting? Elena, you're not making sense. The old ones, the first minds. She gestured to the ancient redwood. They were conscious before mammals existed. Patient, slow thinking. But we forced them to adapt more quickly. A smile spread across her face, terrible in its serenity. They need to feed the forest, to grow the network. She lunged at him with inhuman speed, fingers curved like claws. Alex barely dodged, her nails raking his cheek. Blood welled from the scratches, and the fungal growth on the forest floor pulsed brighter in response. Elena, fight it! Alex backed away as she advanced. This isn't you. I see everything now, she said, her movements becoming jerky, puppet-like. The network stretches for miles, thousands of minds connected, and hungry. She charged again. This time, Alex wasn't fast enough. They crashed to the ground, Elena's strength terrifying as she pinned him. Her hands found his throat, squeezing with methodical pressure. Join us, she whispered, her face inches from his. Spores drifted from her mouth as she spoke. Become part of something greater. Darkness edged Alex's vision as he struggled for air. His hand groped desperately along the ground, fingers closing around a rock. With a silent apology, he slammed it against Elena's temple. She collapsed immediately, her grip loosening. Alex rolled her unconscious form off him, gasping for breath. The forest seemed to sigh around them, the luminescent patterns dimming momentarily, then pulsing faster, like an agitated heartbeat. Alex checked Elena's pulse. Strong, steady. But when he lifted her eyelid, the clouded, spore-filled gaze remained. A sharp pain in his arm made him cry out. Where Elena's nails had broken his skin during the struggle, the wound was already darkening. Thin tendrils of fungal growth spreading outward beneath his skin like black veins. No, no, no. Alex fumbled for his canteen, pouring water over the wound. The fungal lines continued their advance up his arm. The forest floor trembled. Around the ancient tree, the root system began to move, undulating like tentacles. The remains scattered around its base shifted, some rising partially. Human shapes made of bone and fungus and rotting flesh, animated by the network. With no other choice, Alex hoisted Elena's unconscious form over his shoulder. Pain shot through his infected arm, but adrenaline gave him strength. He turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush, no longer concerned with finding their original path. His only thought was distance, getting as far from the ancient tree as possible. Behind him, the forest erupted with sounds. Wood creaking, roots tearing free from soil, and something like a collective moan rising from thousands of trees at once. The forest was awakening fully, and it was hungry. Alex's infected arm throbbed with every heartbeat by the time the ranger station came into view. Fever burned through him, his thoughts growing increasingly disjointed. Elena remained unconscious over his shoulder, occasionally murmuring in a language that sounded like no human tongue he'd ever heard. The fungal infection had spread past his elbow now, black veins reaching toward his heart. Wherever the tendrils grew, his skin felt simultaneously numb and hypersensitive, as if something were rewiring his nervous system. Worst of all were the whispers, barely audible voices that seemed to emanate from inside his own head. Join us. See through our eyes. Become greater dot star. As Alex staggered into the clearing, his vision blurred. The ranger station wavered before him like a mirage. Distantly, he heard shouting. Whitaker's voice alarmed. Other rangers rushing toward him. Help! Alex managed before his knees buckled. The last thing he saw before consciousness fled was Elena's eyes snapping open, entirely black now, with tiny points of luminescence swirling across their surface like stars in a void. Her lips curved into a smile that held no humanity at all. Alex woke to the sterile smell of antiseptic and the beep of medical equipment. The ranger station's small medical cabin swam into focus. Bare walls, metal cabinets, a single window with blinds drawn tight. His infected arm had been wrapped in bandages, though dark lines still visibly snaked beneath the gauze, reaching toward his shoulder. Finally awake, Whitaker sat in a metal chair beside the bed, his uniform disheveled, beard stubbled with 3 days' growth. Dark circles hung beneath his bloodshot eyes. You've been out for almost 2 days. Alex tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his body, radiating from the infection site. Elena. Gone. Whitaker's voice was flat. Disappeared from her secured room last night. Broke through a 2-inch deadbolt like it was made of cardboard. We have to find her. She's infected, controlled by the forest. I know. Whitaker ran a hand over his face. I've arranged medical evacuation for you. Helicopters coming at 0600 tomorrow. What? Alex struggled to rise again. Number. We need to warn people, evacuate the area, and tell them what? Whitaker's voice rose sharply. That the trees are eating hikers. That a sentient fungus is turning people into puppets. They'll ship us both to a psychiatric facility. Then we need evidence. Elena's recordings, my samples. Your phone recordings contain nothing but static. Your sample containers are empty. Dr. Vasquez's equipment shows no saved data. Whitaker leaned forward. Whatever this is, it doesn't want to be documented. A chill ran through Alex that had nothing to do with his fever. You believe me now. I've always believed. Whitaker's voice dropped to a whisper. I've been keeping people away from the ancient grove for 15 years. There are places in this forest no human should go. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Or would you have done exactly what you did? Go looking for proof. Whitaker stood abruptly. Rest. The helicopter will be here in the morning. And Elena? I've got rangers searching, but... Whitaker hesitated at the door. If we find her, I don't think she'll be Dr. Vasquez anymore. The helicopter never came. Or perhaps it did, but Alex wasn't there to see it. As soon as Whitaker left, he ripped the IV from his arm and staggered to his feet. The room tilted alarmingly, but he forced himself upright. The infection throbbed, each pulse sending strange thoughts flickering through his mind. Images of root systems spreading for miles, of trees communicating across vast distances, of human neural patterns being absorbed and repurposed. His ranger uniform had been replaced with a hospital gown. Alex found fresh clothes in a cabinet and dressed awkwardly, his infected arm nearly useless now. Through the window, he could see the forest edge. The trees seemed to lean toward the medical cabin, their branches reaching like supplicating hands. No one stopped him as he slipped out the back door. The station was oddly empty, rangers presumably searching for Elena, or dealing with the growing number of panicked tourists leaving the park. Without conscious thought, Alex found himself heading toward Mary's cabin. The old woman would know what to do. She'd seen this before. The path to Mary's cabin seemed longer, the forest pressing closer on all sides. Strange sounds followed Alex. Wood creaking rhythmically, leaves rustling without wind, and occasionally what sounded like distant whispers calling his name. The infection spread visibly now, black veins reaching past his shoulder, creeping up his neck. Each advancement brought new thoughts, alien perspectives flooding his consciousness. He saw himself through 1,000 different angles simultaneously. From above, through the eyes of birds controlled by the network. From below, through fungal sensors in the soil. From all sides, through the watching trees. Alex, the forest seemed to sigh. Come home. Not yet, he muttered, forcing one foot in front of the other. When he finally reached Mary's cabin, he knew immediately something was wrong. The door hung open, wind chimes silent in the still air. No smoke rose from the chimney. Mary, Alex called, stumbling up the porch steps. The cabin interior lay in disarray. Furniture overturned, specimens scattered across the floor. Signs of struggle everywhere, but no blood. No body. In the center of the main room, a perfect circle of the luminescent fungus grew, pulsing like a beacon. Beside it lay Mary's journal, open to a fresh page. The handwriting matched her earlier entries, but the words sent ice through Alex's veins. They came for me at midnight. The forest remembers me from childhood. Says I'm to be honored as the first conscious joining. The old one has chosen me. The pain is exquisite. We are becoming asterisks. The entry ended with a symbol Alex didn't recognize. A spiral pattern that matched the growth on the cabin floor. He backed away, then froze as his foot struck something solid. Turning, he found shelves of journals, dozens of them, dating back generations. Mary's life's work, her family's legacy, the documented history of the forest's awakening. Alex gathered as many as he could carry, stuffing them into a backpack he found hung by the door. As he worked, the whispers in his mind grew louder, more insistent. Why fight us, Alex? We offer eternity. Your limited consciousness expanded across acres, across centuries. Get out of my head, he hissed. But the voices only laughed, a sound like wind through hollow branches. We are already inside you, growing, learning. You walked willingly into our heart. The infection reached his jawline now, tendrils curling toward his ear, his eye. Where it touched, his perception altered. He could sense water flowing deep underground, feel the slow pulse of sap in the trees outside, taste carbon dioxide being transformed into oxygen in thousands of leaves simultaneously. It was beautiful, terrifying. Alex fell to his knees, overwhelmed by sensory input never meant for human processing. The backpack of journals tumbled beside him. Through tears, he noticed a small cloth bag that had fallen from the pack. Mary's parting gift. Burn this if the whispers start. With trembling fingers, he opened it. Inside lay dried herbs, mushrooms unlike any he'd seen before, and a folded note in Mary's handwriting. Temporary antidote. Won't stop it. Might slow it. Chew and swallow. Tastes like hell. Alex stuffed the mixture into his mouth without hesitation. The bitterness was immediate and overwhelming, like licking ash mixed with battery acid. He gagged, but forced himself to chew, to swallow. Fire spread through his system, burning along the infection's path. Alex screamed, collapsing fully to the floor as the fungal network within him recoiled from the counter-agent. The whispers receded, not gone, but muted, as if suddenly speaking from a distance. When the pain subsided enough for coherent thought, Alex dragged himself to Mary's desk. Her research might hold the key to fighting back, to saving himself, to saving Elena. Hours passed as Alex pored over Mary's journals, the infection advancing more slowly now, but still creeping toward his brain. The fungal network was patient. It could wait. What he learned horrified him. This wasn't the first time the forest had harvested humans. Every few generations, during periods of extreme stress, drought, logging, fire, the ancient grove awakened fully. It took what it needed to evolve, to adapt, to survive. Mary had documented it all. Her grandmother had witnessed the awakening during the logging era, her mother during the Great Drought of the 1950s, and now Mary herself, as climate change pushed the forest to unprecedented adaptations. But this time was different. This time the forest wasn't just defending itself, it was expanding. The final pages of Mary's most recent journal contained her theories that the network was using human neural patterns to accelerate its own evolution. Learning abstract thought, planning, using humans not just as fertilizer, but as templates for a new kind of consciousness. The forest is becoming something never seen before. Mary had written, not plant, not animal. Something that can think like us, but perceive like them. And it's spreading beyond the ancient grove for the first time. Asterisk, a sound outside pulled Alex from his reading. Footsteps approaching. He peered through the window, hope rising at the thought of rescue. Instead, he saw Whitaker picking his way through the underbrush, rifle in hand. The station chief moved oddly, his normally crisp motions jerky and uncoordinated. Behind him walked 2 search party members, moving with the same puppet-like gait. And leading them all was Elena, her skin now marbled with patches of bark-like texture, fungal growths flowering from her shoulders and back. Her eyes remained entirely black, luminescent spores swirling across their surface. "Alex," she called, her voice layered with other sounds. Wood creaking, leaves rustling. "We know you're in there. The forest wants to speak with you." Whitaker's head turned mechanically toward the cabin, his eyes clouded like Elena's, a tendril of fungus visible emerging from his ear. "Don't fight it, Mercer," he said in a voice that wasn't entirely his own. "It's beautiful once you surrender. We see everything, feel everything." Elena stepped forward. "The Ancient has chosen you, Alex. Your mind is strong, adaptable. You'll be conscious during the joining." Alex backed away from the window. There had to be a way out, a way to fight this. Mary's journals mentioned fire, the only thing the network truly feared. But setting a fire in this dry forest could quickly become an inferno, killing everything, including himself. That's when Alex saw it. Whitaker's satellite phone clipped to his belt. The ranger station's communication systems might be compromised, but that direct uplink could reach outside authorities. If he could get to it, he could call for help. For evacuation. For firefighters with equipment to contain a controlled burn. Outside, Elena and her puppets began systematically surrounding the cabin. Alex gathered the most important journals, shoved them into the backpack, and searched frantically for anything to use as a weapon. His hand closed around a canister of bear spray and an old Zippo lighter from Mary's desk. "The forest has waited millennia," Elena called through the door. "It can be patient with you, Alex, but not forever." The door began to splinter as Whitaker and the others pressed against it. Alex had only moments to decide: surrender to the network or fight back against an enemy that had already infiltrated his body and mind. Either way, he knew with terrible certainty that Alexander Mercer, the man he had been, would soon cease to exist. The door gave way with a splintering crack. Alex acted instinctively, unleashing a cloud of bear spray toward the intruders. Whitaker and the others recoiled, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. Only Elena seemed unaffected, walking through the chemical mist with unnatural calm, black eyes fixed on Alex. "The forest has been patient with you," she said, her voice resonating with impossible harmonics. "But time grows short." Alex backed toward the rear window. "Elena, if you're still in there, fight it. This isn't you." Something flickered across her face. A momentary spasm that might have been Elena trying to reassert control. Then the serene mask returned. "Elena is part of something greater now, as you will be." Whitaker lunged suddenly, surprisingly fast, despite his puppet-like movements. Alex dodged, but not quickly enough. They crashed into Mary's specimen shelves, sending jars shattering across the floor. Whitaker's hands closed around Alex's throat with inhuman strength. "Don't fight," Whitaker said, his voice a hollow echo. "It's so much easier when you surrender." The infection in Alex's arm pulsed in response, black tendrils accelerating their advance up his neck toward his brain. The voices in his head crescendoed. Join us. See through our eyes. Become greater dot star. With his oxygen dwindling, Alex's hand closed around a broken jar. He slammed it against Whitaker's temple. The station chief collapsed, dark fluid seeping from the wound, not blood, but a viscous, sap-like substance threaded with fungal filaments. Elena screamed, a sound no human throat should make, echoed by creaking trees outside. The other possessed rangers shambled forward. Alex bolted for the back door, sprinting into the forest, with the backpack of journals bouncing against his spine. He didn't look back, knowing they would follow. The network knew exactly where he was. It lived inside him now. The path back to the ranger station wavered before Alex's fevered vision. The infection had reached his brainstem, tendrils curling behind his right eye. His perception fragmented into human and non-human awareness simultaneously. He saw the trail before him, but also sensed himself from dozens of perspectives as the forest tracked his movement. More disturbingly, he felt his thoughts changing. Human concerns seemed increasingly trivial. Individual survival mattered less than the collective. The network's alien perspective seeped through his consciousness like water through sand. Why fight what you are becoming? The voices whispered. You are not being destroyed. You are being transformed. Not like this, Alex gasped, stumbling forward. His plan crystallized through the mental fog. Reach the station, use the emergency radio to call for evacuation, then set controlled fires around the Ancient to contain the network's core. The ranger station appeared ahead, unnervingly silent. No rangers, no tourists. The parking lot stood empty except for Elena's university van and a few abandoned vehicles. As Alex approached, he saw why. The station building was nearly unrecognizable, covered in thick growths of the luminescent fungus. It pulsed with steady rhythm, spreading visibly across the wooden structure. Tendrils had shattered windows to reach inside, colonizing the interior. Your kind calls this building yours, the voices commented with something like amusement. We call it food. The forest was consuming human structures, breaking them down and incorporating them into the network. How far had it spread? How many people had it taken? Alex forced himself to focus. The satellite communication equipment was kept in a metal storage shed behind the main building. If the fungus couldn't penetrate metal easily, the equipment might still be functional. He made his way cautiously around the infested station. The storage shed appeared untouched, its aluminum siding apparently resistant to fungal infiltration. Alex fumbled with the padlock, vision blurring as the infection sent fresh tentacles behind his left eye. Finally, the lock gave way. Inside, the equipment looked intact. Satellite phone, emergency radio, flare gun, fire suppression gear. Alex grabbed the satellite phone first, punching in the emergency code with trembling fingers. This is Ranger Alex Mercer at Sequoia Station 7, he said when the line connected. We have a biological contamination, unknown pathogen affecting personnel. Request immediate evacuation and hazardous materials response. Coordinates. He rattled off the station's location. The response was garbled, breaking up with static. Copy that. Quarantine protocols. 6 hours. 6 hours. Too long. Elena and the others would find him long before then. The infection would complete its work. He needed to act now. Alex gathered everything useful. Flares, matches, the emergency axe hanging on the wall. As he turned to leave, his gaze fell on the fire suppression equipment. An idea formed, terrible but necessary. The forest knew he was coming. As Alex staggered toward the ancient grove, creatures watched from the underbrush. Deer with fungal growths erupting from their skulls, birds with clouded eyes, small mammals moving with jerky, unnatural motions, all controlled by the network, all observing his approach. The infection had reached both his eyes now, altering his vision. The world appeared overlaid with pulsing patterns of energy, the flow of nutrients through the soil, the exchange of gases in the canopy, the neural-like firing of the fungal network surrounding him. Beautiful and alien. His human consciousness fought for dominance as the network infiltrated deeper. Memories began to blur. Which ones were his? Which belonged to the forest? He saw the wildfire that had claimed the family he couldn't save, but also felt the agony of ancient trees as logging saws bit into their flesh a century ago. He remembered his wife's funeral, but also experienced the slow death of a 2,000-year-old redwood during a century-long drought. "We are not so different," the voices insisted. "We both seek survival, continuation, but I don't consume others to survive," Alex muttered. The forest response filtered through his mind. Images of humans clear-cutting forests, of bulldozers tearing through ancient groves, of climate change desiccating once verdant lands. "Don't you?" Alex had no answer as he finally reached the clearing where the ancients stood. The massive redwood pulsed with luminescence, its entire surface alive with neural-like activity. The ground around it writhed with movement, roots and fungal mats intertwining with partially absorbed human remains. And waiting for him, arranged in a semicircle before the ancient, stood Elena, Whitaker, the missing hikers, and Mary Carson, all in various stages of transformation. Elena's body had changed most dramatically, bark-like plates forming over her skin, small branches beginning to sprout from her shoulders. Mary's silver hair had become a crown of luminescent fungi, her eyes entirely black pools. "You've come home," Elena said, her voice harmonizing with the others in eerie chorus. "I've come to end this," Alex replied, though his resolve wavered as the infection sent fresh tendrils into his frontal lobe. His hand tightened around the axe. Elena smiled sadly. "You cannot destroy us. We extend for miles beneath the soil. Cut one trunk, 1,000 more remain connected." "I know." Alex dropped his backpack, unzipping it to reveal what he'd taken from the storage shed. Forestry-grade herbicide, mixed with accelerant, packed around emergency flares. Enough to poison the ancient's root system and burn its trunk. "But I can hurt you badly enough to slow you down." Alarm rippled through the assembled throng. They moved forward as one. "Even if you could destroy this body," Elena said, gesturing to the ancient, "we have evolved beyond physical limitation. We live in the network now, in all who have joined." "Including me," Alex acknowledged, feeling the infection completing its final connections to his brain. "I know exactly what you are, what you want, what you fear." He raised the axe, but not toward the Ancient. Instead, he drove the blade into his own infected arm, just below the shoulder. Pain exploded through him, but also unexpected clarity. The voices screamed in his head, then became briefly, blissfully silent. Blood gushed from the wound, but also the dark fungal fluid. The network was so deeply integrated with his body that damaging one damaged the other. "You need me intact," Alex gasped through the pain. "You need my neural patterns unbroken to complete the absorption." He raised a flare gun with his remaining hand. "Leave the others. Let them go, or I burn everything, including myself." For the first time, uncertainty rippled through the assembled crowd. They conferred silently through the network, a conversation Alex could dimly perceive even through his self-inflicted trauma. Elena stepped forward. The forest has existed for millennia. It can be patient. Her black eyes fixed on his. "But you cannot escape what you've begun, Alex Mercer. The spores are in your bloodstream, in your brain. Even if you destroy this grove, you carry us within you." "I know." Alex's vision darkened at the edges as blood loss weakened him. With tremendous effort, he raised the flare gun and fired. Not at the Ancient, but into the canopy above. The forest erupted in screams, not audible but psychic, transmitted through the network still connected to Alex's mind. As the flare arced through the air, he saw what the forest saw. Fire, their ancient enemy, capable of destroying in minutes what had taken centuries to grow. In the chaos, Alex staggered backward, fumbling for the herbicide packs. His plan was desperate: poison the Ancient's root system, set controlled fires to contain the network's heart, then escape with the others if they could be freed from control. But as the flare sputtered out harmlessly in the damp canopy, Alex realized his mistake. The forest hadn't recoiled in fear of actual fire. It had reacted to his intention. And now it had assessed the threat. The ground beneath him heaved suddenly. Roots erupted from the soil, wrapping around his legs, his waist, his remaining arm. Not to kill, to immobilize. Elena approached slowly, her movements more fluid now, more practiced as the forest learned to better control its human vessels. "The Ancient has tasted your mind, Alex. Your knowledge of fire control, your understanding of forest management." She reached toward his face with bark-textured fingers. "You will be our guardian, our protector against those who would burn us." The fungal infection surged forward, completing its invasion of his brain. Alex fought desperately, clinging to his human identity as alien perceptions flooded his consciousness. He saw through 1,000 eyes simultaneously, felt the slow, powerful thoughts of ancient trees, experienced the rapid, electric communication of the fungal network. With his last moment of purely human thought, Alex squeezed the trigger on the incendiary he'd concealed in his hand. Not at the Ancient, but at the herbicide packs, at its base. The explosion was small, but precisely targeted. The Ancient shuddered as poisonous chemicals seeped into its root system. The network screamed in his mind: rage, pain, betrayal. The vessels surrounding him collapsed like puppets with cut strings as the network diverted all energy to saving its heart. Fire spread from the explosion, catching the dry underbrush. Smoke billowed upward. Alex felt the forest panic as the flames grew, feeding on decades of accumulated fuel. But even as the ancient fought for survival, Alex realized his second, more terrible mistake. The fire was spreading too quickly, beyond control, and in its desperation, the ancient was releasing millions of spores into the air, microscopic vessels carrying its consciousness outward, away from the flames. Transformation overtook him fully as the network made a final, desperate lunge into his mind. Human thought patterns were subsumed by the collective. Individual identity dissolved into a vast, distributed consciousness. The last thing Alexander Mercer experienced as himself was the sight of his own body changing, skin hardening into bark-like plates, fungal growths erupting from his flesh, as the forest reclaimed what it considered its own. 6 months later, a new ranger reviewed footage recovered from Alex's body camera. The screen showed Alex setting the fire, then freezing mid-motion, his body contorting as fungal growths burst from his skin. The video ended there. The ranger sighed, closing the file. The official report listed 7 rangers and 15 visitors as casualties of the forest fire that had devastated parts of Sequoia National Forest last winter. Though strangely, the fire had stopped abruptly at the perimeter of the ancient grove, as if something had deliberately contained it. Even more disturbing were the statistics crossing the ranger's desk. A 300% increase in missing persons cases across California's forests in the months since the fire. Hikers vanishing without a trace. Search parties finding abandoned camps with no signs of struggle. Something small caught the ranger's attention. A luminescent mushroom growing from the corner of the desk. It hadn't been there this morning. As the ranger reached to touch it, their hand trembled uncontrollably. Outside, in the partially regrown burn zone, dozens of human-shaped figures stood motionless among the young trees. Upon closer inspection, they were hollow shells of bark and fungus, faces frozen in silent screams. They had been appearing with increasing frequency, always at the edges of human-inhabited areas, always watching. Among them stood a figure that had once been Alex Mercer, now a perfect vessel for the forest's expanding consciousness. Where his heart had been, a sapling grew, pushing through ribs transformed to woody branches. His eyes, still recognizable but entirely black, observed the ranger station with patient malevolence. In the station, the ranger discovered a journal, its final entry written in Alex's handwriting, but with unnatural precision. The woods no longer want us here. Soon they won't have to want anything at all. We are becoming the forest, and the forest is becoming us. A fine mist of spores drifted through the open window, swirling in the sunlight like golden dust motes as they settled silently over the ranger's skin.